and welcome to Tridents and Tracers, the Jedi Dropout spinoff, all about new comic books every week. I'm your host, Ryan Taylor, and let me just touch on that last part. Every week, I said. Sorry guys, I didn't get an episode out last week, as you very well know by now. We had a bit of a busy week. We ran into one thing after another. So there was no Jedi Dropouts episode, no Tridents and Tracers. I didn't even have a new reviews ready to go. So it was a quiet week. But we're gonna get. Well, we've already got our Jedi Dropouts episode of this week up. This will be up very shortly, and should be a new reviews that I've had prepared up this Saturday. So lots coming, and I'm gonna try and keep this going. So this week, I've been, like many of you, fucking obsessed with Stranger Things. And you're going to hear a lot more about that because the next Jedi Dropouts episode is going to feature our Stranger Things review. I've been obsessed. Honestly, 10 minutes ago, I was eating Eggos with Halloween candy sprinkled on top. Not that I recommend that for anyone who wants to live a long, healthy life. So I thought I could maybe try my best to tie this week's comics episode into that Stranger Things obsession. So the lineup this week, very, very 80s themed. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy number 146, The Jetsons issue number 1, and Paper Girls 17. So, let's waste no more time. I've wasted enough time by missing the episode last week. Let's get right into these fucking comics. First up, from Marvel Comics, Guardians of the Galaxy 146. And this is my first Marvel Comics since launching this spinoff. This is written by Jerry Duggan, art by Marcus To. I'm not sure. T.O. I've never heard that last name. This is technically the 13th issue that these two have done together with Guardians of the Galaxy. But Marvel's got this new initiative called Marvel Legacy, where they're not rebooting the comics that are currently being produced, but they're renumbering them. So it went Guardians of the Galaxy number 12 straight to 146. So it goes back to its original numbering based on previous comics, which is pretty fucking cool, because that's how you get to Superman number 9, 7. I don't know. I don't know any classic big numbered comics, but that's how you get to those big numbered issues, which is something I really like, and it's the reason that I when numbering the Jedi Dropouts episodes, that's why I have them 0, like the newest issue was 021. It's because it reminds me of that old comic book numbering, and that was done on purpose. So I have not read the first 12 issues. I jumped straight into this. I haven't read anything else Jerry Duggan and Marcus 2 have done with Guardians of the Galaxy. But I saw that with the Marvel Legacy, they're starting a new arc, and maybe this will be a good time to jump in. But this was so much fucking fun. I'm going back and I'm reading those first 12. This was a fucking good time. Definitely the same sort of feel as the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and of course sticking to the classic Guardians comics, which I'm a big fan of. Also, fucking Ant-Man is in this lineup. Scott Lang. So this issue starts the new arc, Infinity Quest Part 1. And the story is basically that the Guardians are trying to find the Infinity Stones for whatever reason. Maybe that's revealed in the first 12 issues. I don't know. And they're trying to get information on the location of the Infinity Stones. So, in this issue, they join the Nova Corps. And, like, just off the top, read this issue just to see, or even just check out the cover, just to see the Guardians in their full Nova costumes. It's so fucking fun seeing, like, little baby Groot in a Nova costume, and it's cool. Of course, just to get the story rolling, they have to split up, of course. So, Drax and Groot are sent to investigate trouble on a forest planet, but we see them go. We don't get to see what happens. We don't get to see any of the forest planet yet, so I'm expecting maybe the next issue. Star-Lord, Peter Quill, is sent to find info on the Infinity Stones, sent to sort of ask around, but instead he finds out that Richard Rider, the most famous of all Novas, I mean, if you were familiar with Nova as a hero instead of the Nova Corps, then Richard Rider was always traditionally a Nova. Turns out Richard Rider is still alive, although I gotta be honest, I didn't know he was dead because I haven't been reading these comics, but still cool, because it clearly means that they're going to bring Richard Rider into this series, which I think will be a cool addition. Rocket's just being Rocket. He's just sneaking around, he's asking questions, he's scouting, and he clearly is looking to rob people, which is perfect. It's exactly what Rocket would do in this situation. But the main story of the issue, Gamora and Ant-Man, Scott Lang, go check out a distress call from nearby, and that story gets fucking cool very fast. At first it seems like everyone there has been killed, but soon find out that there are a couple survivors, so of course they gotta go in and save these survivors. And then you find out what attacked them. And it was fucking Ultron. The beings of... I'm not sure if it's a planet or a ship exactly. It was a little unclear. I think it's a ship. They're all infected. So they're kind of like half Ultron, half alien race. But they're all... Ultron Prime is speaking through all of them, and he's turns out, I guess in this continuity, Hank Pym was killed by Ultron, and Ultron is just teasing Scott Lang about Hank Pym's death, and it's pretty fucked up. That of course you need to end it on a cliffhanger. They fight their way through the Ultron infected, I don't know what you call them, and they find the survivors, they free the survivors, they head back to their ship, and the ship is gone. And of course the issue ends with them being surrounded by all these Ultrons. Man, what a fucking cool comic. I don't read that much Marvel anymore. I mean, I go back and I read the big ones, right? Like, I'm huge fan of Days of Future Past, the fucking Civil War story. Jesus Christ, what's that one? House of M was amazing. Brian Michael Bendis is fantastic. But I don't read a lot of the new stuff. There are a few I want to try. And maybe Marvel Legacy is a good jumping off point for me. Man, what a fucking good read, and way better than like some of the more recent Marvel that I've read. Anyway, as the Muppets would say, moving right along, our next comic today is the number one, because I like to put as many first issues in here as I possibly can. They're the easiest to review without having to prepare too much, you know what I mean? Like, I do read a lot of comics, I do, but if, say, next week there's nothing that I'm currently reading coming out, I mean, the easiest option is obviously hop onto some number ones. There's no back reading to do, and I do have a bit of a busy schedule, so I try and squeeze this in when I can. Anyway, this is a different number one. This isn't a unfamiliar story. It's the Jetsons from DC Comics. So DC has been doing these Hanna-Barbera reboots for a while, and I haven't got around to reading any of them yet, although I've heard great things about the Flintstone series. Not what I expected. I thought it'd be more in line with the DuckTales, the lighter sort of cartoony sort of thing. I mean, I was thinking of the cartoons, right? But this was way, way more grounded and serious than I expected, and it was so fucking good. This comic is by Jimmy Palmiotti and Pierre Brito. My God, comic book writers and artists have the hardest names to pronounce without hearing them. This is great. Okay, so the comic introduces us to George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy, and Jane, his wife. Not mentioned in that classic lineup introduction, but nonetheless just as important are the robot nanny Rosie and the always lovable Astro the dog. This issue has a bunch of different storylines kind of going on, intersecting to just introduce us to this modernized Jetsons. So, of course, there have to be changes, and the big change they made was Rosie is apparently George's mother. Now, I really don't think it was that in the cartoons. I could be wrong, but I never got that. In this story, George's mother, Rosie, chose to have her consciousness put into a robot and to basically dispose of her human body. And that's a fucking big change to make. So George and Rosie have a pretty big heart-to-heart in this issue about that. And he's asking her, like, how is she feeling? How different it is. But Rosie is basically the same character as the cartoons. She's the sassy robot. They didn't change her personality at all. They just kind of changed her backstory, which is pretty cool. Now Jane also gets a big change because, let's be real, in the cartoons, Jane was the housewife. She wasn't she wasn't an independent woman. She took George's money, she went shopping, she did the chores, bullshit like that, right? This one, it seems like she's apparently part of some sort of government or council. Like, she's actually got a very important job by the looks of it. She has a big meeting in this comic revealing that there's a meteor headed straight towards them, and they have very limited time to do something about it. And she also gives some backstory as to what happened to Earth. It's pretty fucking dark. Meanwhile, Elroy, of course, and Lake Cogswell, daughter of the Cogswell from the cartoons, who again is in this. I don't remember Lake being in the cartoons. Maybe she was there, I'm not positive. But they take what appears to be a futuristic submarine down into a deep, ocean trench, which of course holds the remains of Earth civilization. You got skyscrapers and debris just piled everywhere, and it's fucking haunting. Artwork is absolutely beautiful, and they're down there. Elroy, there's something he wants to get his father for a birthday gift. It's like an old original painting in a sealed container, and they get it, but they have a very, very close call leaving and just barely get out of there alive. And of course Judy sort of has a story going on. She's very similar to the comic so far. We haven't delved too deep into that. Astro appears, and he doesn't talk in this one by the looks of it, but he's happy, he's fun, he's very dog-like. Not disappointed with how they did Astro. I wasn't planning on really reading this. This is just something I picked up to review today, and shit, this was good. I might have to go back to it, and I think this really makes me want to check out the Flintstones, because they must be like 20 issues into that one. Okay, one more comic today, and it's my fucking favorite, Paper Girls. Yes, today we got not today, yesterday we got issue 17 of Paper Girls, and it's a fucking doozy. All the secrets have been revealed. We finally know what the fuck's going on with all the sci-fi mumbo jumbo from the past fucking 16 issues. But before I get into that, let's back up a second. Paper Girls, if you don't know, is my fucking favorite comic. If you like Stranger Things, if you like It, if you like anything that involves a bunch of like 12-year-olds-ish running around with an 80s feel, and there's a mystery, anything like that, man, fucking Paper Girls is right up your alley. If you don't know the backstory, I'm not going to delve too deep into it. You can go listen to my new reviews of the first, 3 volumes, and I did that this summer. That was the first new reviews episode, I mean. And I did a Tridents and Tracers episode last month where I reviewed issue 16 of this. But, summing up quickly, 12-year-old girls from the 80s stuck in a time travel story, and it's awesome. Okay, so, Tiffany, we last left, she had gotten in a car crash in the back of a police car when they hit the foot of a giant robot. That's a hell of a fucking sentence. So Tiffany wakes up, the car's on its side, there are giant robots fighting in the street. It's very sort of Pacific Rim, Power Rangers, if you want to go back a little further. It's revealed that there are people inside these robots controlling them, which is interesting. They didn't go too deep into that. Tiffany slips back into unconsciousness, wakes up again later to find the car on fire, and she manages to pull herself free and drag the cop out to safety. He's still unconscious. And of course, she makes her an Arnold Schwarzenegger, a first of 2 Arnold Schwarzenegger references in this issue. The car blows up, but time freezes, and a bunch of insect-like robots fix everything and just repair the car back to how it was. As I probably would, Tiffany runs the fuck away from these goddamn robots, and she finds her old house, looking for her parents, of course, which it looks familiar, but something's different. And she meets someone in the house who claims that she does know this Tiffany she speaks of, because Tiffany is their wife. Dun dun dun. But on the other side of things, we left the other girls, Aaron, KJ, and Mac, at the house of the comics writer Charlotte, who seems to know about all this time travel. Well, turns out Charlotte knows a fucking ton, because Charlotte is the one to give us all the backstory here. She explains that what's going on is the Battle of Ages, as it's called, between the old-timers and an unnamed group, I guess, of rebels. The old-timers believe that changing past events is immoral, whereas the rebels want to go back, fix their past mistakes, make the future a better place. And that is the main source of the conflict that's been going on between all these different fucking weird characters that they've been running into for fucking 3 volumes now. Charlotte has a friend among the rebels named Jude, who apparently is a friend of Heck and Naldo, who you might remember from the very first volume. They saved Aaron's life. Then, of course, after making the second Arnold Schwarzenegger reference of the issue, telling the girls to come with her if they want to live, she brings the girls down to the basement where she unloads more info explaining the foldings, as they've been known, that have been popping up throughout the story, and how they are creases through the fabric of space-time that were created when time travel was first attempted. Charlotte has been passing on information to the rebels through clues in her newspaper comics, but of course shit fucking hits the fan because Charlotte then tells the girls they can't leave because they know too much, because she told them all this shit, and pulls a fucking gun on these 12-year-old girls. Man, what a fucking info dump, though. God damn it, what a fucking good week of comics. All of these were incredible. Jesus Christ, and I've got myself into the habit of picking just one. Fuck. If I'm gonna take one, it's Paper Girls, but I'm biased as shit. Paper Girls was the most satisfying to me because it was 16 issues deep and wondering what all this shit that is going on is, and all of it just revealed in one issue. Man, yeah, I gotta go with Paper Girls, but I definitely recommend all of them. Honestly, just go fucking read all of these. Like, if there was ever a week where I thought you should read every issue, every comic that I reviewed, this is the one. Fucking go do it. And that is the end of our episode here of Tridents and Tracers. Thank you guys for supporting the podcasts, plural. Jedi Dropouts, new reviews, Tridents and Tracers, and fucking who knows, maybe more spin-offs in the future. As always, you can listen to episodes of any of those podcasts. I recommend Jedi Dropouts more than anything because James is there. James is a funny fucking guy. But you can check out episodes of any of those at www.jedidropouts.podbean.com. You can check that out on Podbean, Google Play, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher. For any Android users, I recently switched podcast apps because I do listen to a lot of podcasts myself. Recently downloaded Castbox, and I do recommend that. I gotta say, the first app I found that carries every podcast I'm a fan of, and it's got a real smooth layout. No issues or glitches yet. But of course, you can download your Castbox, and when you do, go check out Jedi Dropouts on it. Of course, you can follow us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that shit. And stay tuned for next week when on Monday, hopefully, maybe a couple of days later, we're going to do a Stranger Things review. We're going to have a Thor Ragnarok review. And James has seen a fucking ton of movies in St. John's. I think he saw Jigsaw. I think he saw Happy Death Day. So we're going to unload with reviews. But mostly, fitting with the theme, Jesus Christ, the theme of this episode, we're going to dig into Stranger Things, and boy, do I have a lot to say. I have spent my week fucking head over heels just deep into this shit. So, stay tuned for early next week, Jedi Dropouts. Later next week, another Tridents and Tracers, as always, where I go crazy about fucking comics. Thanks again for listening. And later.